Welcome, my name is David Wood. I'm the chair of London Futurists. It's my pleasure to say a few words to provide some context for today's celebration of the 20th anniversary of the remarkable Lin Hsin Hsin Art Museum. Lin Hsin Hsin has a long history as a pioneering artist and as an IT inventor. People with this rare combination of skills help the rest of us to see life in new ways. This creative artist reflects on what already exists, making us think differently about it from before. That's important, but they do more than that. What they also do is to guide us and inspire us to see whole new ways of creating reality. In other words, as well as showing us the present in new ways, they also show us a new future. In the case of Lin Hsin Hsin, the new future involves new interactions. New interactions have been a powerful theme running throughout her artistic career. New interactions of digital and analog, new interactions of the mathematical and the material, new interactions of technology and art, and new interactions of the virtual and the physical. In 2014, we have grown used to the idea of digital and analog overlapping. We are familiar with the virtual world coexisting with the physical world. We hear talk every day about the Internet of Things, as well as about the Internet of Data. We also hear talk about augmented reality, in which people wear smart glasses or helmets or other eyewear, and they see electronic information superimposed on top of the images coming from the physical world. For example, police in Dubai are already experimenting with versions of Google Glass in which computer vision software is constantly analyzing whatever the policemen see to check the faces of bypassers against databases of people wanted for questioning about particular crimes. Again, doctors can wear similar head-mounted devices in which they see guidance about the complex medical procedures they are applying to patients. Tourists can see fascinating historical information about bygone ages displayed in front of the buildings they are looking at through their special headsets. And the virtual information can include translations of text from one language into another, such as the text in restaurant menus or street warning signs. In 2014, we are, therefore, beginning to appreciate the powerful benefits of these two worlds, the physical and the virtual, being joined together more intimately and closely than before. But back in 1994, 20 years ago, when Lin Hsin Hsin was on the point of creating the world's first virtual museum website, these future benefits were far from being widely understood. At that same time, in London, in 1994, I remember a discussion with some of my colleagues in the company where I worked at the time. It was the company Psion, one of the first successful manufacturers of handheld personal organizers, also called PDAs. In that discussion, we were wondering about the future of something that was still novel, the World Wide Web. We could provide technology to access from our mobile devices the World Wide Web wherever we were. It would be, at the very least, we thought, an interesting new toy. That's what our marketing director called it. But he asked us, would real people ever do anything useful with it? Back in these days, 20 years ago, the future of the World Wide Web remained unclear. We all owe a powerful debt of gratitude, therefore, to the digital pioneers like Lin Hsin Hsin, who showed us that yes, the World Wide Web could become profoundly important. It would become important for business purposes, for health purposes, for educational purposes, and for entertainment purposes. But it would also become important for the hugely significant area of life known as art. As I mentioned at the beginning, art isn't just about interpreting what already exists. It's also about creating fundamentally new concepts, new ideas, new materials, and new compositions. It's about an integration of source materials that previously remained separate. And it's about the opening of minds regarding what might lie ahead. As a professional futurist, I'm particularly interested in what might lie ahead. It's my job to highlight possible scenarios for the future. I don't try to predict individual occurrences on individual dates. That's more or less impossible, since there are so many uncertainties in life. As in the saying, A single butterfly, flapping its tiny wings, can set in motion air currents that magnify and interact and, in the end, give rise to a typhoon on the other side of the planet. In the same way, an individual politician can make a different speech from the one previously planned, putting emphasis in different places on the spur of the moment, and the mood of a whole country can change. A new release of a product could be delayed by project issues by just a few days and miss an important market window, causing sales channels to cancel orders and to choose a competitor's products instead. Or, another example, an artist can mix themes in a subtly new way, almost on a whim, and the resulting creative work could go viral. Change escalates in all these examples, and it is therefore very hard to predict. Futurists cannot deal in certainties, but a futurist can point out possibilities. These possibilities include both threats, bad futures, and opportunities, good futures. As I said, futurists seek to draw people's attention to forthcoming threats before these threats become too damaging. Also to forthcoming opportunities before these opportunities slip outside of our collective grasp due to inaction on our part. In both cases, the threats and the opportunities, the public may at first be slow to see what the futurist sees and may not appreciate the magnitude of these impending transformations. Futurists therefore need the skill to persuade the public, look at things in this way. These skills involve, yes, you guessed it, the skills of the creative artist. Foresight is hard and is becoming harder. The pace of change is accelerating, and there are more factors that are overlapping, converging, and disrupting each other's expected course of development. These complexities, these difficulties might tempt us to give up on this task of foresight and to live as nowists in the present moment rather than as futurists. But I see it like this. These difficulties mean instead that we need to become much better at the task of foresight. And to become better at the task of foresight, we need to listen to a range of different kinds of people. We need to listen to technologists as they speak about potential trends in technological development. We need to listen to sociologists, psychologists, and philosophers as they speak about constraints on changes in human nature, human thinking, and human society. And very especially, we need to listen to inventive artists, such as Lin Hsin Hsin, as they highlight new ways of existence and experience that could come into being, made enabled by these new technologies, and made possible despite the constraints in our human nature, human thinking, and human society. As we are looking back at the remarkable changes between 1994 and 2014, let me briefly share 3 scenarios with you about what might happen in the next 20 years. These are not forecasts of what will definitely happen, but are rather ideas of what might happen. These are scenarios that we might decide we should strive in some cases to accelerate, or in other cases to slow down, reverse, and even cancel. The first scenario is the further incorporation of programming into life. This is the increasing merger of the technological with the biological. The name synthetic biology is sometimes used, referring to the creation of new forms of life, similar to how the phrase synthetic chemistry described the emergence of, in its time, a major new industry in the last 2 centuries, creating new materials. Another name is genetic engineering. Software engineers in the near future will program not just in silicon and in transistors, but also in DNA and RNA. And we won't just be using the resulting technology in order to create so-called designer babies. Instead, we'll be redesigning ourselves as adults. We'll be genetically altering our own skin, our own hair, our digestive systems, our muscles, and even our brains. If that is true, we can be sure that digital artists will be heavily involved in helping us to see what's possible and what's desirable. The second scenario is the further merger of artificial intelligence and human intelligence. Robots will become smarter and smarter. Just as we presently believe that human creativity involves thinking outside the box, and just as we encourage our students to learn to think more laterally, we'll be encouraging the next generation of software systems to think for themselves in creative, lateral ways, outside of the computer box, as it were. These systems will be able to spot emergent patterns in raw, unstructured data. For example, the IBM supercomputer, known as Watson, was initially developed to win a wordplay quiz show called Jeopardy that is particularly popular in the United States. But new versions of Watson are now able to carry out many medical diagnoses better than experienced human doctors. Watson, which became good at the word puzzle game show by reading all of Wikipedia in advance, is now able to digest huge amounts of medical research literature. Watson can read far faster than human doctors and can keep up with the pace of new publications. Watson is therefore able to propose new kinds of treatment. But is this really a good thing? Or are there dangers in software becoming not only cleverer, but also more creative and more human-like, more alive, if you wish? Again, this answer will involve leadership from artists, as well as from engineers, entrepreneurs, philosophers, and politicians. The third scenario involves another fundamental transition in how we live. Instead of labouring on farms or in factories or in floors of office space, we won't need to spend anything like as much of our time working, since smart robots will be taking care of many, many tasks that currently require human input. But in that case, if there is no need to spend 40 hours a week working, how will we humans be spending our time? My prediction is that many more of us will be spending our time as artists and as explorers, as entertainers and as viewers, and as game players and as games directors. And we'll be spending that time increasingly, not in the physical world, but in virtual worlds, connected to an incredible immersive set of computers. These computers won't just be feeding us virtual information, as in augmented reality, to our eyes. They'll be feeding us audible sounds, fragrant smells, stimulating tactile fields, and much, much more. These three scenarios all involve big questions. The answers to them cannot be found simply by opening an engineering textbook or solving a mathematical equation. Some people may not like me to say it, but it's true that our existing leaders in the fields of politics, religion, journalism, and academia don't have ready answers to these big questions either. The answers need to be created rather than simply discovered. And that process of creation will involve, as a key component, a very healthy artistic dialogue. We need to build on the pioneering work of digital innovators such as Lin Hsin Hsin as we explore the possibilities for the future. These creative IT artists will be catalyzing our understanding of what's possible and what's desirable. And that's something we definitely need. The last 20 years, in summary, have seen tremendous change, but these changes will pale in comparison to what lies ahead. Today, let's celebrate the past 20 years with an eye to building on the wisdom, the successes, and the accomplishments of these years. And let's raise a special mark of celebration to the breakthrough work of Lin Hsin Hsin. I declare this 20th anniversary open. Thank you very much.